Just let me know whether my voice is clear.
Yes.
Should I increase it or is it okay?
Okay.
It's fine. And another thing which I want to check with you is, are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So what I'm planning to do is I'm planning to split my whole presentation into 3 parts. Maybe a little bit of introduction. Then after the introduction, I'll be talking about 7 habits for highly effective entrepreneurs. So basically, it is inspired by Stephen Covey, and it is simplified by me. So when me and Das was talking about it, we were thinking like, whether we should do only a book review or we should add more value. So let me go and say that I want to share computer sound. Yeah, I also done that. Beautiful. So it's going to be 3 parts. So one part I'll be talking about the Stephen Covey's book. It's one of the greatest book which I've read so far. And the changes slightly I've made, and then how we can implement it as entrepreneurs. I think people should go on mute if possible, right? So this is my first slide. So before getting into my first slide, I'll talk about how I came across Stephen Covey. I was working for TCS, and the first time I went to US was in the year 1997. And I heard a lot of good things about the libraries, the facilities, the colleges, and the universities. So I went to University of Denver after completing my work for a couple of hours, saw the facility, a beautiful facility, and then went to a library called Aurora Library. So as we enter the library, what happens is they actually say the books of the month, as we enter the library. And on that particular month, they were saying that the book of the month was 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And that's how I read the book. And when I took the book and then when I started reading few chapters, honestly speaking, I felt asleep in the sense that there's too much of a content is there, too much of a heavy content was there. And but the book actually transformed me. So you have to take a serious amount of time to read it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to condense it for you in a very, very nutshell. So when we start our life, what we think is our life is going to be pretty smooth. We get into this and then it will be a smooth sail. But unfortunately, what happens is we talk about, let's say, demonetization, and then suddenly there's a dip is there. After demonetization, we try to recover. Some GST is there. After GST, we try to recover. Now there is something called COVID is there. Now, why I'm talking about 7 habits of highly effective people is, if our foundation is really good, irrespective of any of the things that we are going to talk about it, I think we will be face all the situation really well. So we'll talk about those things now. Before I get into a book, I would like to ask one simple question, right? So I've created a small quiz over here. Some of you are on, let's say, the Zoom app. Most of you are on the Facebook app. So anybody on the Facebook app, I will not be able to track, right? So I will also take help from Das here, right? So this is a small quiz. Who am I is the quiz. So it says, I am your constant companion. I am your greatest helper or your heaviest burden. I will push you onward or I will drag you down to failure. I am completely at your command. Of the things you do, you might as well turn them over to me and I'll be able to do them quickly and correctly. I am easily managed. You must merely be firm with me. Show me exactly how you want something done, and after a few lessons, I will do it automatically. Those who are great, I have made great. Those who are failures, I've made them failures. I am not a machine, though I work with precision like a machine, plus the intelligence of a human being. Take me, train me, be firm with me, and I'll put you the world at your feet. Be easy with me, and I will destroy you. Be easy with me, I will destroy you. Who am I? Any answers? Can you go and put it? Can you put it in the chat box? Any 1 or 2 answers which comes to you? Who is this person we are talking about? Does any response in the chat box? Does?
From Rajesh, I'm getting it's habit,
Absolutely.
mind, human being, time, habit.
I think Rajesh is bang on. Who am I? I am habit. So he's perfectly right. Habit is your constant companion. Habit is your greatest helper. Habit will push you onward. Habit will be completely at your command. Habit will get half the things done. And habits will, if you have the right habits, it will make you great. Those who are really failure, it's all because of their habits. Habit is not a machine, but it can work precision to a machine, right? Take a particular good habit, take it, train it, and be firm with the habit. It will put the world at your feet. Be easy with the habit, it's going to actually destroy you. So habit is the answer. Rajesh, kudos to you. Now let's go and see what are those 7 habits we are talking about, right? So before I get into the 7 habits, a little bit of an introduction. Now, this book, when I started reading, it was only 15 million copies sold. 15 million copies sold. And now if you go and search it, now they are talking about 35 million. So that means 3.5 crores has been sold. And he's talking about 7 habits of highly effective people. And if somebody goes and does a Google search, they will see that something like 4.24 crores, 4 crores 24 lakh results will come in a fraction of a second. That is 0.7 seconds. So that many amount of documents are there on this particular book. So obviously this book is one of the highly read books. So let me summarize it for you in a minute or two on the 7 habits. The first habit is talking, if you have a paper and pen, you can note it down. The first habit he's talking about is called as be proactive. There will be too many things that will be coming up in front of us. Those guys who are really, really proactive will be able to handle any situation. That is a habit number 1. Then he talks about the second habit, which is the most powerful habit among all these 7 habits. In that second habit, he will say that think that it's called the begin with an end in mind. Begin with an end in mind. What it means is think yourself that today is the last day, and assuming that you are laid in the coffin. In the US, what they do is if anybody is there, passed away, they'll put him in the coffin. He'll say that, imagine that and think what others should be telling about you. What should your spouse or near and dear one should say about you? What should your children should say about you? What should the neighborhood should say about you? I think others are on talking. If you can go on mute, it will be really beautiful. So he'll say that start imagining that. He says that should give the formation for your goals. That's the second habit he's talking about. The third habit, what he's talking about, the Stephen Covey is talking about, is called first things first. That means you need to prioritize things as important and urgent, important and not urgent, not important and urgent, not important, not urgent. It's like a 2x2 matrix. So you will say that try to do it and try to focus on quadrant 2. That's the third habit he'll be talking about. He says that if you're able to effectively use these 3 habits, he says that you have got your personal mastery. The moment you got your personal mastery as an entrepreneur, if you get into the professional side or in the leadership side, he gives you another 3 habits. The fourth habit he talks about is called as think win-win. So what it means is that is never do a deal which will be something called a win-lose or a lose-win. Always do any deal, whether it's employees, whether it is suppliers, or whether it is customers, anyone you are going, or contractors, anybody you do a deal, he says, do a deal called win-win. That's the fourth habit he talks about. If you talk about the fifth habit he talks about, it's called first seek to understand, then seek to be understood. In many of the cases, what happens is that happens with me as well, even today, is that before somebody tries to close a sentence, I will start assuming things. But the effective habit he's talking about is which I read 23 years back, okay? And still I'm not able to overcome it, is seek first to understand, then to be understood. So listen carefully. God has given you 2 ears and 1 mouth, so you need to listen. That's the fifth habit. The sixth habit he's talking about is called as synergize. That means I have one idea, Das is having one idea. When we both come together, we are not having 2 ideas, we are having multiple ideas. That is called as synergy. For example, let's say there's a tree is there. In a tree, I'm not able to go and climb and take the fruits. So that means I'm getting 0 fruits, and all it required is about another 2 feet, pushing and then getting all the fruits. And if 2 people can join, you can get even 10 or 15 fruits from the tree. So that's the power of synergy. So don't try to work alone. Try to work with people. That's the sixth habit. The last habit he talks about most powerful is called as sharpen the saw. What is meant by sharpen the saw means, let's assume that I want to go and cut the tree and it's going to take 8 hours. He says that don't go and cut the tree for 8 hours. Periodically sharpen the saw so that your cutting process will come down by at least 20 to 25%. That means what he says is take some breaks and then start reading these kind of books. Apart from these 7 habits, he talks about too many good things. He talks about production divided by production capability. He talks about circle of influence, circle of concern, and all that stuff. But I've given you a good overview about the 7 habits, and I will play a small video for you on the 7 habits right now. Thus, I think you're able to hear the video, right?
I remember my grandma's favorite story
Yes, I can
was
able to.
about how everything cost 2 cents when she was young. But now, everything constantly got more expensive. And it was all because of the government. These uneducated pigs didn't know how to control prices. And when I was privileged enough to hear the story, her complaining would last for hours and hours. And that's exactly what reactive people do. They always focus on the things that they cannot control. It's not possible that a concept like inflation would exist. And if it did, it's impossible that they wouldn't know about it. On the other hand, proactive people realize, look, even if my complaining were completely objective, it doesn't help me. So I'm going to focus on what I can control. If a proactive person owns a business where he sells a product, instead of focusing on how people these days don't appreciate good products anymore and how the government has horrible regulations, he focuses on how can I improve my product so my customers can't live without it. Do you realize how much responsibility, how much dedication, how much hard work comes along with asking that question? And what do you think our effort minimizing brain is going to pick as default? And that is exactly why most people focus on the things that they cannot control rather than focusing on the things that they can. Habit number 1 is be proactive. Now, imagine you're at a funeral, but this one's different from all the funerals you've ever been to. You're standing over the casket and you see yourself. What do you have to say about yourself? This is one of the most powerful questions you could ask. Are you doing the things in your life which are aligned with what you want to be able to say? Do you want to say that you are a good spouse? If that's the case, how does coming home and instantly being negative towards your spouse affect that? Do you want to be remembered as a person who added value to society? If that's the case, are you doing the things that will allow you to say that, or are you scared of failure and choose comfortable mediocrity instead? Almost every one of us will have to readjust how we live when we ask this question. Habit number 2 is begin with the end in mind. Now, if I were to ask you, what are the most important things to you? The most common answers I would get would be either your well-being, or your family, your spouse, your children. You would never ever say organizing papers or watching TV. But how many of us spend more time organizing papers and watching TV than planning our nutrition and going to the gym or cultivating a healthy family environment? There's a horrible disconnect between what we say and how we actually allocate our time. Habit number 3 is put first things first. Now, imagine you're an author and I'm an author, and we both write interesting books, and we both have access to an audience of about 100,000 people. I read your book and I love it, so I decide to share it with my audience, and as a result, you now have thousands of people buying your book and reading your ideas. You see this and think, who is this guy? Let me take a look at his book. You start reading my book and think I have ideas that are valuable, so you decide to share it with your audience. And as a result, I now have thousands of people buying my book and reading my ideas. Notice how different this is from my creating a little creepy Amazon account, finding your book and leaving a bad review, hoping that this will deter a few people from buying your book, which will in turn somehow get them to buy my book. Habit number 4 is think win-win. Young. But now, everything constantly got more expensive. And it was all because of the government. These uneducated pigs didn't know.
Are you able to hear me? Yeah. Okay, good. Okay, beautiful. Right. So this is the 7 habits. I think like people are talking in between, so I couldn't complete the video. So I'm going to forward this. I'm going to fast forward. These are the 7 habits he was talking about. Habit number 1 is being proactive, and habit number 2 is begin with an end in mind. Habit number 3 is put first things first. Habit number 4 is think win-win. Habit number 5 is seek first to understand, then to be understood. Habit number 6 is synergize, and habit number 7 is sharpen the saw. Right. So this is the introduction which I wanted to cover. Now, what I thought is I will give you the 7 habits for highly effective entrepreneurs. So before I get into it, once again, a small quiz. And before even getting into the quiz, a little bit about entrepreneurship. So a lot of people ask, what is the definition of an entrepreneurship? For me, if you ask me what is the definition of an entrepreneurship is, an entrepreneur has a very good idea which will solve the problem for the community. So he has a list of lot of things. He has looked at all the problems in the community. He came up with a need, and then he had a brainstorming session, and then he's coming up with various ways in which he's solving the problem. In fact, that's what Steve Jobs tried to do, or Mark Zuckerberg tried to do, or even Richard Branson. Please remember these names. All these names are going to come back in another couple of minutes right now, right? So this is what an entrepreneur does. If you ask an entrepreneur, you will never convert 100 rupees into a 90 rupees or something like 105. An entrepreneur is a guy who will try to make 100 to 200, or he will make it into 0. If you talk about, I started my career in the year 91, 92. In 92, there were 2 IT companies which I closely followed. One is called Infosys Technologies, and another one is called Kumaran Software. There are 2 companies which I followed in 1992, along with TCS. That's the time I was working for TCS. But if you look at that 2019, still both the companies were there. Whereas Infosys grew from 12 lakhs revenue, it went to 82,675 crores. Whereas Kumaran Software, which also had 12 lakhs, had grown only up to 144 crores. Can you see, there are companies which are growing at a much faster rate, and there are companies which are growing at a much slower rate. So you are going to learn why, why certain companies are going to do it. And it's all because of certain habits, right? And before that, we also learn a lot of things from failures. One of the great books I would expect all the entrepreneurs to read is called Failing to Succeed by K. Vaitishwaran. He started indiaplaza.com much before. He was working in Wipro, and then he started this company. When you read this book, you will know, what an entrepreneur will go through and all that stuff. A good book. But right now, you're not able to order the book. You can always buy a Kindle edition and then read it. Okay. Before I go into it, let's see, why one company is able to grow manifold and one company is not able that much. So a small video, once again.
How does a leader train himself? How does he groom himself for scaling? Vision is fine, but how do I train myself? What do I do? So what did you do to yourself? Nayan Murthy of a startup to a billion-dollar corporation.
First of all, the biggest instrument for improvement for leaders is feedback. Most leaders who failed in the world failed because they cut off the feedback channels. They allowed only positive signals to come to them. Whether it was Mrs. Indira Gandhi, whether it was Richard Nixon, whether it is Robert Mugabe today in Zimbabwe, every one of these people, they cut off the feedback channel. Therefore, you have to create an environment where people give honest feedback. And if you use that feedback, when you sit alone, alone, and reflect on it, I think there is an opportunity for everybody to improve. The second I find is to set aside ego when it is learning. For example, when we started the leadership training program at Infosys, we were the first company to start a leadership institute in India. My colleague Finish handled a course on selling. We all sat down. Even though he was junior to us, we all sat down, we wrote down notes, we learned, and we were the beneficiaries. Similarly, when Mohan Pai did his course on finance, we all sat down and we all learned. We are much better today because of our attending those courses. So once we understand that learning from others, even though they're junior to you, is for your own betterment, I think by and large you can become better.
So it's a great, this one, like two important learnings. One is something called a feedback that like an entrepreneur should take this one. And the second important learning that you got from the video is like Narayana Murthy himself sat in the floor and then learned whatever he has to learn on finance. So most of the entrepreneurs are domain experts, right? Whoever I'm coming across, they're all expert in the domain, whether it be the pharma industry or in the FMCG industry and all that stuff. What is required for an entrepreneur is not only the domain expertise, he or she should also have the functional expertise. So when I say functional expertise, I start from marketing to sales, like, to finance, to HR, to operations, like, to administration. So like, including management. So there are many areas in which, like, the entrepreneur has to do it, and feedback and training is going to really look into it. So before we look at the 7 habits for highly effective entrepreneurs, let me ask some few questions for you. I think Das, you might have to help me here, right? So some people had mentors, right? Like a lot of people had mentors. So you can try to, like, you can try to enter all the mentors' name in the, you can try to enter the mentor's name in the chat box. First question. This is from the famous serial called Mahabharat. I think what you're seeing is in Tamil. I know some of you can't read Tamil. That's okay. This is a Mahabharat serial. Can you please tell me who is the mentor for this particular person? Thus, you may have to help me with the names. Any chat box which comes in, chat responses. Sakuni, absolutely right, 100%. You are right. Duryodhan is the character and the mentor for him was Sakuni. Correct. Beautiful. Next one. A quick one. Once again from the same serial. Who is this person and who was the mentor? Das?
Yes. Someone is asking, I want to identify the character name.
The character name is Arjun. The character name is called Arjun.
Okay. The character name is Arjun.
So I think, like, it was telecasted in Hindi as well. Correct. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Right. Now let's go to Ramayana. Right. This was also telecasted in Star Vijay and all that stuff. Now this person, who is the mentor for this particular person? Who was the mentor?
Rama.
Rama. Actually, Rama was a mentor in the second stage. In the first stage, he had a mentor called Jambavan. Correct. Before, no, it's called Jambavan, not Sugriva. Jambavan was his first initial mentor, and the second mentor was Rama, right? And this is once again from Ramayan character, and her name is Kunti. Who is her mentor? Who was her mentor? Quickly. Okay, let me go forward. It's Kuni. It's Kuni. Kuni is the mentor for her. Okay, Bharatan's mom. Now, there's one more character in the same Ramayana, like this person is called Ravan. So for Ravan, who is the mentor for Ravan? Anything comes with that?
Shiva.
No. The mentor actually was her mom, his mom, and the council of ministers. They'll come and say that, son, like, you have been born out of bone. Nothing will happen to you. No human being can touch you. Nothing will happen. And the council of ministers will say that, like, we are in Sri Lanka. Nothing can happen. We are surrounded by, like, full of water, and there's a big moat is there. Nobody can enter and all that stuff. So actually the mentors were them. And now let's get into business. So people will know about him. This person is called Warren Buffett. Who was the mentor for Warren Buffett? Any answers coming in thus?
Benjamin.
Absolutely, 200% right. Benjamin Graham is the mentor. Okay, now let me go to the next one. Bill Gates. Who is the mentor for Bill Gates? Any answers?
Graham.
No.
Ben Graham.
No. Warren Buffett is the current mentor for Bill Gates is Warren Buffett. The current mentor for Bill Gates, which is happening for the last 10 to 12 years, is Warren Buffett. And Richard Branson, we talked about entrepreneurship, right? The Virgin Airlines, this one. Who is his mentor? Any idea? Does any responses coming?
Bill Gates.
No. Frederick Laker. Okay. Now, everybody knows, like, we are using him for advertising and all this. Who was his mentor? Facebook. Any answers are coming, Das?
No, not it. Steve Jobs.
Absolutely right. Steve Jobs. And now our own Narayana Murthy. We saw the video as well, right? Who is the mentor for him?
Maybe his wife.
Good guess. Actually, is Gurucharan Das. That means any group, any successful group in India, whether it's Tata Group or whether it's Birlas or Godrej, you take any group, always there is a mentor, right? So that means, and let's talk about popular sports. You name any one person in any sport, whether be it cricket or tennis or something like that. Tell me one sport where the person has reached the peak without the help of a coach. Is there any one sportsman who has reached the world top position without having a mentor or a coach? In sports, it's actually a coach, right? Any one person? The answer is no. We all need mentors and coaches. So now that means that's the habit number 7. Habit number 7 for you is, if you want to become a very highly effective entrepreneur, you need to align with the right mentor and coach. One of the reasons why I accepted for doing this program for UBC was UBC wanted to play that role for future entrepreneurs. So I said, like, let me share this idea. This is the habit number 7. And when I say a mentor or a coach, I think you should spend at least 10 minutes a day with your mentor. 10 minutes a day, not more than that. Maybe in a month, it's about 300 minutes. Am I doing the right things? What is your feedback? Where should I get this kind of an information? Like, I'm struggling with this. What should I do? Approximately 5 to 6 hours a month. That's the amount you should spend with a mentor. Maybe once in a quarter, maybe a one-day workshop or whatever. So that means at least 1 hour a week, not more than that. And this person will give you, point out all the things which you are doing right and all the things which you are doing wrong. And he will also help you to figure out all the answers. And how much you should be paying him, maybe in terms of equity, or it could be whatever small amount. But having the mentor is the most important thing in your life. The second habit which you should be having is called building a A-class team, not a club. I mean, B or C type. Your team should be of A type, right? When I'm talking about it, it's not only building the team. Please ensure that for each and every person you are having, come up with a list of tasks that he or she has to do. They should not keep figuring it out. In a startup, people have to do all types of work. They cannot go and say, I will do only purchase. I will do only sales. I will do only marketing. No, not possible. If it's a startup, people have to do a lot of things, and we should expect at least 9 productive hours per day. Not more than that, not less than that. And similarly, when you are a startup, I know a lot of people where one human being is managing, let's say, 25 people, 30 people, 40 people, and all that stuff, right? My suggestion is after working in big corporates like TCS or IBM or Capgemini, I would say that the right span of control, the number of people reporting to you, should be a maximum of 8. Because if you spend 10 minutes or 15 minutes with each of them, mentoring them, what happens is that itself will take 1.5 hours per day. And the next thing is, at any point in time, don't lose your core team. When I say a core team, once you hire a talent, and then once as a startup person, once you start moving with 2 or 3 years, try to retain the core team using some good strategies like employee stock options, giving them good incentives. There could be some people who will ask for loans and advances. They may say that, can you give me a loan of 5 lakhs or 2 lakhs? I'm having some personal situation. So please ensure that never lose your core team, because whenever you add a new team, you are going to lose the effort, because there's a 4-stage process called forming, storming, norming, and performing. Let me repeat. forming, storming, norming, and performing, because whenever you add a person, you're going to lose time, right? And the most important tip which I want to give it, for people is this 9 productive hours has to be split into 3 different buckets, which means thinking, doing, and communicating. I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs either most of the time only daydreaming, thinking that how to make my company 100 crores, how to make my company $10 million or $1 million. They only keep thinking about how do I this. But what is very important is small wins. That means you need to do. It's not only thinking and doing. If you are going to find, let's say, a new venture capitalist or a private equity person for raising funds, you should also be able to put across your ideas. So that means you as an entrepreneur should split your time into this. And before communicating, remember that point. God has given you 2 ears and 1 mouth. That means you need to listen more and then speak less. And more importantly, take a 5-second pause or a 6-second pause. With that pauses, you will be able to bring a lot of value. And more importantly, this is what, whenever you're going to bring a team, please ensure that whenever a new member gets inducted, the team performance will go down for at least 6 weeks or 8 weeks, because he's coming up with his own processes and thought process. So how you want to avoid this? See, for example, when I joined Capgemini, there's something called a buddy lover program. And there is something called a mentor and a coach. That means when I joined Capgemini as a vice president, there will be a senior vice president who got assigned with me like a mentor and a coach and a buddy. So that means this person will help me to get settled in the process very quickly, so that I complete this forming and storming process in a span of 6 weeks. And then I become very productive with the team, and then I get into the performing stage. So please understand, building the A team is your second habit. Now, the third habit and the most powerful habit is there are 5 best servants for you. Okay. But if you change the role, that becomes the worst masters. If you keep them at a distance, and then if you do it, definitely they are the best servants. They will work for you like anything. You can do miracles. But the moment you give the position to them as a master, your life is ruined. What are those 5 servants? The first servant is called your habits. If you have the right habits in place, you tell getting self-motivated. If you're able to get self-motivated at any point in time, whether it is COVID, demonetization or GST, you give anything. If you're able to have the right growth mindset, come what may, I'm sure you'll be able to perform. That's your best servant. On the other hand, if anything happens, if you have some kind of a bad habit, whether it's small things, it could be as simple as smoking. If it's a very small bad habit, the moment somebody says you go and catch up with a smoke, I think that will become the worst master, right? And the next thing is your fame. The moment you reach out to a particular place, people will say that the amount of fame, it's actually a servant. If you treat it as a servant, you can keep increasing it. The moment you think like a master, you're gone, right? And the third thing is your position in the organization. Your position in the organization is, I want to become a director. I want to become an executive director. I want to become the managing director. I want to become a vice president. I want to become a senior vice president. So if you start looking at it, but instead, if you look at it my position is 1 step away, I think it will act as a servant for you. And more importantly, money, right? The moment you start counting money always in your mind, not in physical thing, you start what is the company's valuation? What is my company's valuation? Should I go and sell it right now? Then you're gone. But if you use money as a servant, definitely you can make wonders. The last one, very, very important, is opposite sex, right? Lot of entrepreneurs have failed because of this one particular things. I don't want to quote anything here. I know that I'm live on Facebook. People are going to watch on it. So I don't want to say about this. This one habit can bring people down, right? And I learned all these things from my master, from 2009. His name is Mathreya, and he did a tweet on March 23rd, 2013, which was his birthday. March 23rd is his birthday, which is about a couple of days from now. He did a tweet. His tweet was like this: inability to handle one of these 5 toys. He says these are 5 toys: money, power, fame, position, and opposite sex is why most people rise, but then fail, right? But I've replaced one of them with habits. At the end of the day, habits also bring you down. So I made a small change. And recently I got one WhatsApp forward, which I'm going to share it with you. This is a WhatsApp forward I got it. It says, sex in the body is fine, money in the pocket is fine. They only become a problem when you enter your mind. Such a powerful things. So guys, like, those guys who want to be an entrepreneurs, please ensure that you have these five best servants for you, right? This is habit number 5. Let me go to habit number 4. Habit number 4 is, I was talking about 7 habits of highly effective people. In that I was talking about the third habit. The third habit is nothing but first things first. The first things first is coming as these kind of quadrants. You should be focusing most of your activities, important activities, and on not urgent things. When I say not urgent things means you should be empowering your people. You should spend time with relationship building with your suppliers, relationship building with your customers, relationship building with your vertical heads, relationship building with your R&D team, relationship building with government, relationship building with your ecosystem. That's where you should be spending your time. But unfortunately, today's entrepreneur, 90% of the time is spent on crisis. It's all spent on deadline driven activities, medical emergencies. So that means pressing problems. So every day we are on a firefighting mode. In fact, what I do with entrepreneurs is I define a timesheet system. I ask people to enter timesheet, and then we just reflect upon. And there are 4 different quadrants where an entrepreneur should manage himself or herself. For example, one is called the profession or the business. So that is only one part of it. Another part of it is family. And the third part of it is self. For example, what you want to achieve on your own. For example, last couple of years before I started spending time on learning Vedic chanting, this is what I want to learn, whether it is Vishnu Sahasranamam or whatever, I started spending time. That's my time actually. Apart from that, there is some time which I've created for social. For example, UBC comes under that. Basically, I said I want to give 10 hours a month for giving back to the society. So if you look at my WhatsApp forwards and all that stuff, you will see at least minimum 10 hours a month. I'm doing programs for Parent Circle, or I'm doing activities for Sevalaya and other things. So that means you need to manage your time, and 90% of your time should go on quadrant number 2. And this is habit number 4. And please ensure that you as an entrepreneur cannot work 5 days a week. If you're going to work for TCS or Capgemini or IBM or a Deutsche Bank or something like that, you can work 5 days a week. But if you are an entrepreneur, you have to work all 6 days, right? That's very important. Another thing is Monday morning, 9 o'clock should be a team meeting, right? That means you set the targets, what you want to achieve. And Saturdays, you take stock of what was achieved, right? Saturday is for all internal cleanup, so that all your processes and systems and teams are completely cleaned up so that you are ready for the next week. And more importantly, you as an entrepreneur should introspect what went well today, what didn't go well really today, because self-correction will give you the best results. Instead of somebody your spouse coming and telling you, your team member coming and telling you, no, it will not work. Your secretary coming and telling you will not work. If you introspect daily for 10 minutes, hey, I think I did all these things. This really went well today. If you ask me, I'll say that in this Zoom meeting, I think I made one mistake. Maybe something when I played the first video, I think I didn't have a better control. Maybe I couldn't play it. Maybe next time when I'm going to do this program, I need to manage my video timing really well. That's the learning. So that means I'm talking about introspect daily and then add value. And the next thing is Sundays, don't try to do any work. Sundays is a day for you to unwind with family. Don't try to exhaust yourself. So this is the habit number 4. Let me go to habit number 3. Habit number 3 is the most important habit among all the habits for entrepreneurs. You need to target at least 5% growth. If you are in budding stage, if you're on starting stage, that 5% growth should come day on day basis. On a daily basis, it should come because you are just a startup. On the other hand, if you have already slightly in a growth phase, it should come every fortnight, because we are talking about power of compounding here. And if you are an young organization with 3 or 4 years, at least that 5% growth should come every quarter. If you are a mature organization, like even whether you're an ITC or a TCS or an Infosys, at least you should grow 5% top line year on year. If you are not able to grow 5% year on year, then I think better you find a better new leader and then give it to him. And I'm going to share an image now, and he is kind of my mentor and coach. He works in, he's a professor in New York Stern University, and his name is called Ashwath Damodaran. He's a valuation guru. We call him as a valuation guru. He talks about, like, how each and every organization goes into various cycles. He talks about growth strategies. He says that periodically the growth should keep happening. And in case the growth is not there, that means you have entered the mature stage to the declining stage. So there is no point, like, worrying about it, I think. And there are organizations like IBM, which has exceeded 100 years into existence. It's very important that you operate at a minimum 5% growth. This is habit number 3. Now let me go to habit number 2. Habit number 2 is very, very important in the sense that you need to have perfect alignment to 3 things in life. What it means is that is your thoughts should be in congruence towards your words. Then your words should be completely in congruence towards your actions. That means your thoughts, words, and actions should be the same. When you talk to your employees or colleagues or partners, what happens is you think something different, but when you tell something, like, you tell something different, and when it comes to increment or sharing or something like that, you behave completely different. If that is going to be there, it may give you a short-term success, but it will not give you a long-term success. When your thoughts, words, and actions are incongruent, beautiful things happens. What happens is, watch your thoughts, because it becomes your words, for they become your words. Watch your words, for they become your actions. Watch your actions, for they become your habits. And here we are talking about 7 effective habits for both highly effective people and effective entrepreneurs. And watch your habits, it become your character. Through the character, people can judge your intentions. I was working for my previous employer. Like, my previous employer was Metis Family Office. He will say that, Senthil, your intentions are always right and your intentions are always pure. That's what is very, very important. Watch your character. And watch your character, because that becomes your destiny, guys. And this is the habit number 2. And the most important habit, like, I'm going in the reverse order, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. And the most important habit, what is very, very important is 10,000 hours of focused efforts. When I say focused efforts, it means that, like, for example, anybody who spends 10,000 hours in any one activity, for example, if you take an auto driver, or even if you take a car driver, if he's going to spend 5 hours into it, 5 years into it, he's going to build some proficiency. So similarly, if you're going to get into a new domain, let's say digital marketing domain or whatever, guys, please put in 10,000 hours of focused efforts. It will do magic, right? So for example, when I moved from, let's say, from IT career to wealth management career, I took about 8 years, and then I have accumulated about 16,000 hours of effort into this particular field. And that effort should be consistent, it should be directed, and it should be self-motivated towards growth. And most importantly, it should be an intelligent effort. That's what I was talking about. So this is the habit number 1. And if you want to learn about this 10,000 hours, there's a great book called Outliers. Now, this book has been written by a person called Malcolm Gladwell. He did a research on all the people, on all the successful in Earth, whether he's a sportsman or whether he's a politician, whether it's Narendra Modi or Barack Obama. You take anyone, any successful people, he plotted them on a graph. He plotted them on a bell curve. And then he said that why only certain 0.001% of the people alone have become so great in that particular field. Why? Then he said that the common thing that he came out is those people had invested 10,000 hours of self-motivated efforts. So that's the habit number 1. Now, what I've done in the next slide is I've tried to combine all these habits, right? The next, this is the 7 habits which we talked about. Habit number 1 is 10,000 hours of focused efforts. Habit number 2 is perfect alignment to your 3 things in life, which is your thoughts, words, and actions. Minimum 5% growth, and 90% of your time should be in quadrant 2. That is relationship building activities with the ecosystem. And the 5 best servants, I'm talking about habits, power, fame, position, and I'm talking about opposite sex. And you should be building an A-class team, and you need to be having, more importantly, you need to have a mentor and coach. That's what is very, very important. Now, what I did in the next slide is I tried to map the 7 habits of highly effective people of Stephen Covey with 7 highly effective habits of the entrepreneur. That means these are the 7 habits of highly effective people, and these are the 7 habits of the entrepreneur. The 10,000 hours of focused efforts directly maps with your sharpening the saw. That means what is very, very important is that is your efforts has to yield minimum efforts should give you maximum results. When you talk about perfect alignment to three things in life, I'm talking about you need to be understood. Like, first, like you need to understand others before being understood. When you talk about minimum 5% growth, that means you need to be very, very proactive with the market, because market dynamics keeps changing a lot. Not only that, 90% of your time should be in quadrant 2. It exactly meets with your first things first. And the 5 best servants, like, is coming for the synergize. That means what happens is when all the 5 things comes together, it can provide wonders for you. And more importantly, if you talk about building a A-class team, maybe you have to shell out 10% of your equity or 15% of your equity to the people, like, to the ecosystem. Then you are talking about thinking win-win. And more importantly, you need to have a right mentor and coach. Begin with an end in mind is what is very, very important. And before I get into the Q&A, and it's almost 5 o'clock, I think we talked about a 1-hour session. We can be there in Q&A for 5 or 6 minutes. Before that, this is my address, this is my email ID. If you want to take a pic, you can take a pic, and we will reach out to you. If you have any questions, you can